Thanks for the great introduction. I'm Shauna Hunt, a reporter with City News. If you don't watch our station, you likely saw me on perhaps YouTube, or maybe I clogged up your Twitter feed or Facebook page a couple of weeks ago. Effer in the P, Effer right in the P. I'm the reporter who cussed out a couple hooligans at a soccer game a few weeks ago, and it went viral. So don't mess with me. Especially if you're on the sunshine list, because I'll knock you right off it. Okay, so I can joke a bit about it now, but in all honesty, the thought of someone being out of a job makes my stomach churn. But this story, it exploded. Public opinion was so powerful. Within hours of this Effer right in the P conversation going to air, it was being talked about in New Zealand, Ireland, Italy, Australia. I was told that, media outlets picked it up in 46 countries. So all of a sudden, the reporter becomes a story, sucked right into the vortex is what I like to call it, because that's exactly how it feels. I've been reporting in the streets of Toronto for a full decade, and for the very first time I got this unique perspective of what it's like to be in the eye of the media storm, and it can be a whirlwind. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit more in a bit. I just want to start off by backtracking and talk a bit about, how I got here in the first place. So I studied broadcast journalism at Fanshawe College, and I was lucky enough to be hired right out of school. And there is this sort of unwritten rule in the industry: start small to finish big, right? So I got this gig at an easy rock station, Chatham, Ontario. Anyone been there? Anyone? There you go, Desmond Cole, Chatham, Ontario. Okay, so for this big city girl, it was a really small town, and I pretty much began my career doing the farm report. Bushels of beans this, corn, wheat that. To this day, I still don't know what I was talking about. But the bottom line is it got my foot in the door. So naturally, I wanted out. I just started sending resumes to every station in Toronto. Whether they were hiring or not, they were going to hear from me. So I think one station got back to me, and that was AM 640, and they wanted to interview me in person the very next day. So what do? Call in sick to Chatham, take the train 4 hours to Toronto, and I remember this time my dad was giving me the pep talk, trying to thicken my skin, trying to toughen me up, saying, hun, you're not going to get the job. There's no way you're getting hired, but think of the positives. You're going to interview in the big leagues. Maybe one day when you actually have experience, they'll remember you. So you're not going to get the job. And, I got the job. And so I spent 2 years there pretty much just, paying my dues, working all the shifts. I was night to days to nights, weekends, overnights. I was 21, who needs to sleep anyway. A couple years in, I got picked up. It's true, right? You can do it when you're young. A couple years in, I got picked up by 680 News. And this is when I started covering bigger stories in the city. The TTC Wildcat strike earlier on, the Sunrise propane explosion, the day the tornado touched down in Vaughan. I mean, that was a big deal. Just it was too close to the city, and it destroyed homes. And that was a really thrilling day on the job. It was kind of scary, but breaking news. That's where the adrenaline gets going. I also covered, did many stories on the disappearance and search for Tori Stafford. This was a tough one. It felt important to be a part of, though, and everyone in this province, everyone wanted to find this little girl, and it felt good to, you wanted to help in some way. During this time, I also learned to maneuver City Hall, police headquarters, Queen's Park, and Queen's Park has a lot of rules, by the way, so it's my least favorite, right? Too many rules. You can't shoot here. Take your mic flash off. Anyways. But I'd have to say my most memorable story at 680 in radio would have to be G20. So leading up to G20, we had this guy who looked just like Rambo come in to our newsroom. He was giving us riot training, what it was like to be in the thick of things. And so, what it's like to be in tear gas and around rubber bullets, and how to read police and their actions and their body language, knowing when to get out of there because they were moving in. So I was super pumped for this. I just thought it was going to be a really exciting weekend. Got my backpack. They loaded us with gear. I had like a gas mask and a fire extinguisher of all things. So I hit the streets, and before long, I was in the thick of it. I remember being up at College Park not long after, just as this excuse me, this massive protest was moving through, and members of the Black Bloc were branching off, and they were ransacking businesses. They were just smashing up the storefronts, and it was a really tense, hectic situation to be a part of. But in radio, what do? I mean, it's as simple as calling in. You're live. You go. You just stand there and describe what's happening around you. Later on that night, as it was getting dark, police, again, they really wanted this protest to break up at Queen and Spadina. And this was before the mass arrest. I just remember a visual I'll never forget is the line of cops. There was like 50 of them. They looked like RoboCops. And they would march in unison and just bang their batons against their shield and move in. And boy, were they intimidating. And of course, people scattered. So as thrilling as G20 was, there was such fallout and so many implications that came from it. You know, issues of police brutality, human rights violations. There were the mass arrests. I was down by Novotel during that. A couple days later, I took a tour of the Eastern Avenue Detention Center. So it was just such a massive event in the city with so many implications. And I remember moving into television, I was still covering years later G20 stories about the fallout of that. So I guess this brings me to television. I had this great opportunity. It all had to do with the changing landscape, Rogers bought City. So I was sort of in the family, and so I pushed my way in through the TV door. I had this great opportunity to be a part of this all-news TV station, which of course was risky. You had CP24, I'm sure you all know it. They're have breaking news down to a science. But it got me in the door. I had to transition from TV to radio, which was not easy. TV, or radio, like I said, you pick up the phone, you go. You're descriptive, you use sound. TV, it's a whole different story. It's a long day. You're pounding the pavement, things break late, there's so many hands in the pot, because you can't just do it all yourself. So huge change, big experience. But basically, this all-news station is where I learned the art of live television. It was 8 months in, I got a call working a weekend shift. I got a call, shots fired, Eaton Center, go. We were actually just, 2 minutes away from the station doing some fluff story I wasn't really into anyway. I just remember getting to the station, running through Yonge Dundas Square. Our newsroom was right there. And I saw my producer standing in the square. She was shaking. It was like a boost of adrenaline through her veins. She had all her hookups to go live, and she was like, there's numerous victims. There's a lifeless guy on the ground. We know that a 13-year-old boy has been shot in the head. So this was a big deal. This was steps away from where Jane Creba, 15 years old, was gunned down on Boxing Day back in 2005. So it was Pam Seidel was anchoring, I was reporting, and we just had to go. We did 3 hours of continuous live coverage of this breaking story. And the craziest thing about television is that you learn as it happens in the moment. They can try and prepare you as much as they can, but really every scenario is different, and you just learn on the job as you go. And so, for the last 10 years, I've been pounding the pavement, putting my blood, sweat, tears into what I do, trying to build my career. And the one thing that gets me the most recognition is the day I cuss out some drunk guys at a soccer game. So this brings me to F right in the P. This is what we call it in the newsroom. You get F in the P today? Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, so... it started as a prank in the United States. It was a prank. It goes viral. People, for some reason, think it's hilarious. So they start, guys in the streets start, F-er, and the P-bombing is also what I call it, American journalists. Eventually, it makes its way to Toronto. All of a sudden, city news reporters are the first to get P-bombed on live television. So I was World Cup celebrations. Natalie Dudridge, I'm not sure if she's here. Did she arrive? She was going to come today. So she's the first reporter to get F-er and the P-bombed on live television. And I can tell you, it was shocking. When it happened, it was shocking. She handled it like a pro, but it was shocking. And all of us were terrified. All other reporters were terrified. All of a sudden, we didn't want to be in the streets. We were terrified to go live, because who knows what you'd have to deal with. It got to the point where it was so shocking that the bigwigs, the big brass of Rogers Media, who we never hear from, were calling Nat, even saying, "Are you okay? Is there anything we can do for you? You did you did a good thing, and we're here to support you." And so she's standing there doing her live hit, and this guy comes in, grabs her microphone. They're going back and forth. They're struggling. She's not letting go. F her right in the P on live. Stella's eyes, laser eyes, and then we cut to clips. So it was just, and then a couple weeks later, our Melanie the TIFF red carpet had happened to her. But it got to the point where you didn't even need to be live. I could just be standing on the street corner with a microphone and I was a target, F in the P. Guys drive by in their cars, roll down their windows, real cool dudes, F right in the P. One time I was interviewing Olivia Chow on a street corner during the mayoral race, and I saw this a mile away. Saw this guy in a pickup truck turn the corner. I could tell. He slowed right down, rolls down the window, and it was so close to it. So close to us, F her right in the piece. So anyways, Olivia's mortified. Got to stop the interview. I have to explain to her what's going on. We have to refocus. I'm on deadline. Not only is it a disgusting phrase, but I mean, it's really disruptive. So it just became this massive thing. Crowds were always the scariest place to be because you had anxiety about going live. So this brings us to, I guess, the TFC game. I knew going into it I wasn't going to be happy. I had to do live hits, and I knew the crowd. And literally, we were just, setting up. Literally, we were setting up, and it was F-er in the P, blah, 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 just yelling, hooting, hollering. It was just standing there like a piece of meat. And some guys laughing behind me. I could hear them conspiring. The rest is history. You've seen it. But now when I talk about being the eye of the media storm, this is what I'm getting at. Within hours of this going to air, we decided to take a stand. We decided to air that confrontation because we were sick of it. I knew it was going to get attention. I knew that I would somehow have to, talk about it and sort of be a spokesperson on it. I was okay with that, but no way could we have predicted that it would have gone this big, that it would have exploded, that millions of people all around the world would be talking about it. And for good reason, though. I just remember we went to air. I was in a Home Depot live streaming. We were buying an air conditioner that day. And I was live streaming the newscast. And within an hour, my phone, I couldn't keep it charged. I mean, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, just going off. And the media requests start coming in, and this is the eye of the storm. It gets out of control. There's so much opinion out there, so many people talking. It felt like it was getting out of control. I talked to my bosses. We had to handle it. We started this, so we had to finish it. So I think the first day I did 30 interviews. I wasn't even doing my job at this point. I was just dealing with the backlash or the aftermath of a viral video. And then the next day, I remember I had just wrapped up an interview with the Fan 590. I walked out. The producer handed me a piece of paper that said breaking news on it. And it said, Hydro 1 guy in F-er right in the P confrontation is in the process of being fired. So, my heart sank because this was not the point of it all. But this is what happens when it goes viral. There was so much opinion out there. This guy was an easy target. He was on the sunshine list. He was easy to take down. He was easy to become the example. And it was a scary moment because at this moment, I remember driving back to the station thinking the tide's about to turn. Anything positive about this? I'm in the middle of it. I am in the storm. All the backlash is going to come on me. And I was thinking, did I just single-handedly destroy my career? I've been working so hard to get here. And did I ruin it? And so this is what it feels like to be in the eye of the storm. Stories these days are bigger than ever. The circus is crazier than ever, especially with viral videos. We've only really been dealing with this for, 8-10 years. And we learned a lot, but there's a lot more to be learned. And I remember going to bed knowing newspapers were printing headlines on me and who knows. But this is what social media has done. It's changed the way that we do things. Things come in so fast and furious. I mean, what happens in Toronto can be known in New Zealand in minutes. And once it starts circulating, it's over. And with the good, there's always the bad and the ugly. I mean, just because there was a lot of positive things that came of this, there was backlash. People wrote horrible things, outrageous lies. I mean, this is what it's like these days to be the story. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned, for sure. But so social media changes the way that even we operate in news. And for instance, raise your hand if you still have a newspaper delivered to your doorstep. Anyone? I think my dad's here. He definitely does. There he is behind the pillar. And raise your hand if you were home by 6 o'clock every night and you plop down and you turn on the news because you have nothing better to do. Is anyone home for local news? No one. Not one person. My husband, but yeah, this guy over here. Okay, so this just goes to show how things are changing. We are constantly challenged because of the way you get your news. Anyone want to speak up? How do you intake your news, your information? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook? How do you get your information?
Daily Show.
Daily Show. Well, there you go. There's one. Anyone else? Just yell it out. That's okay. Twitter, phone, Facebook, everything is in the palm of your hand pretty much, right? So why would you go home and watch the news if, because when something big happens, you see the headline, you even see the video, you know every detail. You know, how do we stay relevant? So every day, this is how it's changed. Every day we're just trying to we're just trying to stay relevant. We're trying to give you a reason to watch. We're trying to come up with different angles, give you reasons to tune in. And it's a daily struggle. And so this is what I love about City News, because we are not afraid to take risks. We do things differently. We no longer have a format. Every newscast is different. When the sex ed curriculum thing became such a controversial issue, instead of just doing the package report with the anchor guy and, with the tie, reading from the teleprompter, we said, you know what? People care. We know because of social media. And so we put together a debate. It was moderated by Avery Haynes. We had the both sides, and throughout our newscast for 2 hours, between 5 and 7, we had this really intelligent conversation coming from both sides. And I think this is the struggle. You have to stay relevant. You have to keep going. And every week is a different issue, and you just have to find ways to keep going. So, to be honest, it's such a great industry, but it is shrinking because people just aren't watching news the way that they used to. And so, we do a lot more live streaming. We live stream even interviews throughout the day, or we live stream news conferences throughout the day. But it is a constant struggle, and but in the end, though, I just kind of want to wrap this up by saying, it's a really exciting industry. It is stressful, it's fulfilling, it's exhausting, it's exhilarating all at the same time. The world is so fast-paced, information is lightning speed, and we're all just trying to keep up. So I talked your ear off. I appreciate you listening. Awesome, but I'd love to open it up to questions, please.